What is up, listeners and viewers? My name is Father Paul Callow, Vocation Director for the Oblates of the Virgin Mary, and
And I'm Father Jorge Sanchez. I am a parochial vicar at St. Mary's in Alton, Illinois, chaplain at the high school called Marquette, and vocations captain at St. Mary's in Alton. I'm basically his like personal right hand man.
he does what I tell him to do.
Sometimes, not all the
And
time, unless it has to benefit me.
maybe.
Go
And
ahead.
this is Brews with Bruno. We already got the mugs. Uh
These are sick mugs,
Podcast,
by the way. Who designed these? Did you do?
Amazon.
Really?
Everything's
They
Amazon
do a
these
great
days.
job. Look at that. It looks so professional and everything. And they're why black though?
We're black.
Oh, okay.
So this is Brews with Bruno, a podcast with Father Jorge and I.
And we
Eh,
also have Lucas in the background. You know, he's our personal, I would say personal
He's our
chef.
media guy.
He's our media guy. Do you cook, Lucas? Oh, come on.
Okay, back on topic. So you
Yes.
can already tell what this is going to be like,
Yes.
where Father Jorge is going to go down a lot of rabbit holes, and I'm
And he
going to have
keeps me
to
on
keep
track.
him on
Yes.
track.
Yes.
Uh, anyway, so Brews with Bruno. This is a very crowded space. We've been talking about this for a very long time, not just with Father Jorge and I, but this goes back probably like 5 or 6 years ago with our previous vocation director, Father John Long. He's like, we need to just make videos. We need to make a podcast, get it out there. Who cares what it looks like, but just get our voice out there. So it's been a long time in the making. And then Father Jorge and I have been picking it up for at least a year or two talking about it. Now we have, as he pointed out, a great film guy, Lucas, here working for us for over a year and
Wow.
just getting into the space, maybe in a unique but different way for many reasons. Um, and trying to be a little bit different about the same time. So what makes us different, Father Jorge?
So here's the thing. You want an honest answer? Or do you want me to give you like the,
Be serious at first.
okay. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things that'll make us stand out is first of all, we have our founder, Venerable Bruno Lanteri. There's so much richness to his life, so much richness to the advice he has given to others. And then we have so many wonderful quotes from him that we can talk about maybe in every episode. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else has Lanteri. Nobody else has the richness of our founder, Venerable Bruno Lanteri, and how relatable he is to people today in today's world who are dealing with hopelessness, discouragement, many things like that. But also not only just being downers all the time, but also just the quotes he has about joy and the fire with the love of God. Just so many. That's one way we can stand out from other podcasts out there. What do you think, Father Paul?
I would echo everything you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and kind of just beginning with our founder and himself, Father Lanteri, and maybe just bringing a side to him that hasn't been put out there before. You know, I'm sure a lot of people who know the Oblates of the Virgin Mary know some of our priests. For example, Father Tim Gallagher, who has many wonderful videos and has a podcast out there about discernment of spirits, the Ignatian exercises, and he's written a biography on Father Lanteri as well. So maybe just bringing that to light. It's back there, right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Bringing that out, but also maybe more lighter side because we're very two different individuals
We are.
as well. Brews with Bruno. This was Lucas's idea with the title, but I think our personal love for coffee, definitely
It's the eighth
addicted
sacrament.
to coffee. But that really, I think, gets into who Father Lanteri was. Of being here in the podcast space is he went where people were, and specifically went where young adults were.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, my whole idea or vision is when I think of Father Lanteri and going where the young adults were, is that in his time frame, and he lived primarily, you know, late 18th century into the early 19th century. He was born 1759, died in 1830. Uh, he lived in the northern Italy, Pinerolo, Torino area of Italy. And what he would do during his time in ministry is he would go into the spaces where the young adults were. He would spend a lot of time in the town squares, near all the shops, you know, including the coffee shops, etc. Just so he could listen to what the people were talking about, and especially listening to what young adults were talking about as well, to know what was captivating their mind. Where were they spending their time and attention? This obviously, when there's no such thing as social media, as podcasting.
Yeah.
But just he wanted to know what was everyone talking about. And in order to do what he did best, and why we're here to this very day, 200 years later, is how to bring God into this space as well. Because you have to meet people where they're at. And obviously, today, you can't just sit in your church, sit in your retreat house like we do and like expect people to come. You have to be out there, you have to meet them where they're at. And unfortunately, bring God into that space and make God look appealing as well.
I was just kind of thinking about this. If Venerable Bruno Lanteri was here, what would he talk about in a podcast like this? Just this is such a modern world based on where he was, because he had he had such a interesting life. I always relate back to at least to him when his mother died, and his father points to a statue of Mary and says, "This is your mother. This is your mother now." And to me, that's always been such a that's the very first story I ever heard of Venerable Bruno Lanteri when I was first met the Oblates at our parish in California. Somebody shared that story with me, and it just always stuck with me for some reason. And of course, I started seeing Mary as a deeper relationship with her as my own mother. Not that my mom's still alive; I love her; she's great. But just seeing Mary as more as a that maternal mother who always puts me into her most maternal loving hands and brings me over to her son Jesus. And I think Lanteri had a love for her, and I think that's for me at least. That was makes him so attractive to me.
Mm.
That here's a man who is living his faith, meeting with young adults, forms a great group called the Amicizia Cristiana, where he promotes great books.
Oh, look at you.
Look at
You
you.
know how to pronounce things.
Yeah, well, it comes with the territory of being a priest. Uh, just promoting great books at that time, fighting heresies, or against heresies. Um, yeah, so many great things. It's just his heroic way of kind of always working behind the scenes. He never really was as um, maybe this isn't the right word, but front and center with like other religious orders. Like you think of Mother Teresa, she was front and center there. Praying with the poor, feeding the poor in Calcutta, or Saint Dominic, or all these other people or these other saints who founded an order. They were front and center. But what I love about Lanteri is he was always kind of sort of in the background, just kind of working behind the scenes with spiritual direction, with spiritual exercises, promoting great books. And I think this what makes him so attractive. And I think this is what we do. This is what we do as oblates as well. We're not really front and center on stage, although this kind of contradicts that. But uh, we work well behind the scenes.
We are on a stage right now,
We are on a stage,
and
but
there are some people in the background
yes,
watching right now.
yes, yes.
But I think that's a great question that even you throw out there. Like, what would he do? I don't think
Hmm.
it's necessarily like what would he do in terms of like what he talk about. I think he would do the same thing today,
Hmm.
but obviously the different context and people who know the Oblates of the Virgin Mary know a little bit about Father Lanteri already. Um, it's the whole message of begin again,
Right.
of begin again, Nunc Chapi. Throwing that into this space and getting that message out there to as many people as possible. And because it's a simple message. And for me, I said this in a homily recently with our seminarians. Our seminarians are back. They got back here to Boston a few weeks ago to Our Lady of Grace Seminary. And the first mass they're at was on a Saturday, and I had the mass. So I wanted to speak to everyone, but knew the seminarians were going to be there. So kind of geared the homily more towards them as well. And I just shared my own personal story of how one of my biggest struggles, perhaps, when I was in seminary, I'd been in vows for a few years too, was seeing Father Lanteri as a heroic figure, to be honest. Because when you look at many of the saints, St. Ignatius of Loyola, for
Yeah.
example, one of my favorite saints,
Hmm.
whom there wouldn't be the Oblates of the Virgin Mary without St. Ignatius of Loyola, because he created these spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius of Loyola. And then the
Hmm.
question is, why aren't you Jesuits? And then the response is, oh, well, because of Father Lanteri. But when you look at St. Ignatius of Loyola, I mean, what, especially today, young men who the biggest word that I hear in this is they want to do something radical.
Hmm.
What do you want to do for your life? I just want to do something radical, Father Paul. Hey, that's great, but what does that mean? They have no clue, but they want to do something cool, radical. It's going to be hard and difficult. And someone like St. Ignatius of Loyola definitely appeals to them. This guy was, a soldier. um, a horse soldier. He was wounded in battle, defending his city, defending his castle. The story is that everyone else had pretty much deserted on his side, and he's left there standing. And the French who he's fighting against, they see him and they try to take him out. And they take him out with a cannonball, it shattered his leg. It's like, who doesn't want to get wounded in battle? But then while he's recovering, he has this, knot on his leg. His leg isn't being healed appropriately, and he's very worried about how this bony knob on his leg is going to make him physically look less attractive, and he's not going to be able to wear the high leather boots that horse soldiers wore during that time. So twice he has the surgeon come in and shave the bone off without anesthesia. Like that's like rip my habit open, pound my
Mhm.
chest guy type of moment.
Yeah.
Lanteri was none of that.
Yeah.
I mean, Father Lanteri was a guy who, uh, at the young age of like 16 years old, 18 years old, entered a monastery, Carthusian monastery, and after a week was told you have to leave because your health is too poor. And he was a man who, throughout his entire life, when he would try to do new things as a priest with ministry, a lot of the things that held him back and impeded him was his health.
Yeah.
And so for me, the struggle was like, man, like parliamentary is kind of weak.
Mhm.
He's not a guy's guy. Would he be someone that I would be attracted to and want to follow? And like, okay, so then like, how do we promote that? Or how would I want to follow that? Like, can I follow that? Um, but when I like would actually pray about that and even maybe honestly like talk to Father Lanteri about his life, that whole message of begin again, you see that radicalness or that warrior spirit that I see in St. Ignatius, but not in Father Lanteri. You see it in a very different way, as
Mhm.
you're saying, to be 4 years old, about 4 years old, and have your mom die.
Mhm.
Can't imagine what that'd be like. And I'm someone who lost my father at the age of 18, and that's a very losing a father as opposed to a mother is very different. You're losing that nurturing
Yeah.
component. And at the age of 4, like, where's mom at?
Mhm.
Like she's there one day because you can't comprehend it. You just know she's missing. And then your dad takes you to church and says, "This is your mother." Now, like, what does that even mean?
Mhm.
Like, this is a statue, but he creates that relationship. And then you look at other moments of his life, like again, he enters the Carthusian monastery. He lasts for a week. For me, I'm like, I'm not going back home. I'm not going back to Jerusalem, Illinois, because I'm gonna be a failure in the eyes of everyone. But he didn't let that impede him. He still loved God, and he still felt God was calling him to be a priest. Um, and he lives that life. And throughout his entire life, even when he first founded the Oblates of the Virgin Mary, the Oblates were disbanded
Mhm.
because there was their vision and their belief in what God was asking them to do. And then there was a bishop and the magisterium at the time who had a different vision. And instead of complaining and whining about it, he said, you know what? We'll trust God that if this is from God and from our Blessed Mother, it'll come back. And it did. That's an amazing example of beginning again, because again, like for myself or for others out there, it's like how easy are we to just accept defeat when we don't get our way? We just say, throw our hands up in the air, like, done with this.
Mhm.
Uh, he never let any of that defeat him. He preached begin again, Nunc Chapi, because I could see how he lived it his entire life, starting really, at the age of 4. And for me, that's very heroic. That's someone that I can't not just want to get behind, but someone that I want to emulate, and why I am an oblate of the Virgin Mary.
Yeah. One of the things with that quote, begin again, sometimes we as people, we pray for the the outcome, right? Like, oh, please don't, I don't know, let it rain tomorrow, whatnot, or please let me persevere through this. But the most heroic things that always happen is always at the beginning, begin again. When you get to begin again, that's when the that, you know, let me backtrack here. So the feast of Nativity of Mary, which happens to be today on the day we're recording this. Um, you know, I just think about Mary and for her to her big yes, right? For her to get to that yes, she had a lot of beginnings, beginning with her birth and in the middle of nowhere. And she wasn't anything special, and yet it was all that, these little things in her life, these begin agains that she lived in her life. And Lanteri really kind of emphasized with us, hey, begin again, because that's when grace happens, when you begin again. I think it's very powerful stuff. Bye, Amy.
Yeah, so this is kind of what this space is.
Hmm.
An opportunity for you and I, two men, oblates of the Virgin Mary, sons of Lanteri, sons of Mary, as we also dub ourselves, to bring Father Lanteri and ourselves,
Yeah.
because we're, we're two oblates who are very different, but also same from our brother oblates as well, to bring him to life, to bring his message into a very crowded space, but also a space that he would have gotten into it and not let that defeat him as well. That there's a purpose, there's a message there to it, and it's a message for everyone. And again, I think there's two things you can do in life when you fall, when you make a mistake. As priests, obviously, you and I, a large part of our ministry uh, is hearing confessions, offering
Hmm.
the sacrament of reconciliation. I think that's what I love about being an oblate, because we emulate what Father Lanteri did, who was known, like when he would preach a parish mission, to spend hours upon hours into the early hours of the night hearing confessions and not giving up. And
Yeah.
we look at our community, especially our four parishes that we have, and the amount of time, like quantity wise, that we offer confession, because we are religious and live in community, and the number of priests can offer that. Um, it's like you come to confession when you fall, begin again, or
Hmm.
you can wallow in your own sinfulness. It's like, what would God want you to do? Just begin again. If you're a student out there and school is not going the way you want it to do, or the sports isn't going the way you want it to do, it's like, okay, begin again. If you're someone who's discerning a vocation and you're confused, because there's a lot of confusion that happens, or you could be wondering, like, why would God want me? Why would he use me? Like, you can focus on the negative part of it, or you can just begin again as well, which is needed in every day when you're discerning a vocation, especially. But I think that's perhaps the biggest thing today is um, the world will tell you that, one, you will never fall. There's no such thing as failure, or when you do fail, just give up. Um, scroll to the next thing, for
Hmm.
example, uh, or just be humble and begin again. In many ways, there's always that opportunity, and it's a simple, very easy message, but I think a very necessary one. And so, just bringing that message, bringing his life, um, as it was 200 years ago, but all the way up to this present day, and in our eyes and in eyes of other oblates as well who will join us, is just an opportunity, and a reason to not hold back and let our voice be heard.
Hey, no, begin again, kind of echoing what you're saying there. Begin again is really just carrying your cross and just falling, and you being on the floor there, and just say, oh, should I get up again? I probably should get up. This cross is pretty heavy, but I kind of don't want to get up. I think you've probably been there. I've been there too. I'm like, oh, do I really want to get back up again? Nope. Yep. Okay. Lord, be by my side. Let's begin again. And begin again, leaving everything to the past, to the mercy of God. There's just something so powerful in that. And we talk about beginning again for others, but also beginning again for priests. You know, we're going to fail no matter what, and we should. I've fallen flat on my face plenty of times. Terrible homilies, uh, you know, uh, showing up at morning prayer late sometimes.
Never.
Never. And just, maybe saying something, and maybe it doesn't come out the way you want it to as a priest. At least this is just my experience. Can't Don't know about your experiences as as a priest, when you get to begin again. But that has been so important to me as a priest. Begin again, reminding myself because I am really good at reminding people about begin again. But for myself, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to remind myself here. Be merciful, Lord, and let me begin again with you.
Yeah, and I would just add to that of when you begin again, you put that with it's picking up your cross, especially when there's a fall, is how are you going to begin again? And I
Right.
think that goes back to the beauty of the sacraments is you begin again with the Lord. He
Hmm.
knows what it's like to carry a cross. He knows what it's like to fall. And it's not just inviting him to it, but even Christ needed help carrying his cross
Yeah.
to Calvary. And who you're going to surround yourself, whether it's religious life, community life, diocesan life, marriage and family life, etc. Of we all need help.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that Father Lanteri was never afraid to do was to ask for help and to trust others in all phases of life and of all vocations in life. And that's just part of it. So it's how can I invite the Lord in, begin again with Him, who can help me with that as well? Because that's what Father Lanteri did. That's who he was, and that's how he continues to live today through us. His sons, his oblates today. I think that's what this is. There's not a huge vision of it
Yeah.
quite yet. We have some talks, some episodes coming up on some of our favorite books
Yeah.
and why you should read those books. Because Father Lanteri was big, like that was part of his ministry and part of our charism is promoting good books to grow in virtue and to begin again. So promoting things like that. Um, Also just having normal conversation as well.
Be
You
normal.
know, it's a big thing I tell guys, just be normal. I told your youth group that. I was just with Father Jorge and Alton recently and gave a talk to his youth group there and said, just be normal, just be kids. That's the most important thing in life. Have some joy, have some fun. And so just talking about, hey, like what's been our highlights for the in ministry or in community life here recently, but also like what are our struggles as well? Because as Father Jorge said, as priests, we can at times preach a homily or give a talk and seem like we have it all together. But a lot of times we can seem like that or have hopefully words of wisdom
Hmm.
because we know what it's like to fall flat on our faces.
Hmm.
And so just bringing that kind of more of a human side to this space as well. And then just going on from there. And most importantly, doing it all with a little bit of coffee
Yes.
uh, because I'm addicted.
And it's a good thing, you know. We say brews with Bruno. Most people might think, well, how come they're not drinking beer? I was like, well, I think because coffee, brewing coffee, I think it's just the right thing to do. Plus, I think a lot of our guys drink coffee, so it just seems like a very oblate thing to do to drink
Perhaps.
coffee.
I don't know about that one. It just goes back to who he
Yeah,
was and being in the
yeah,
space. Um, and we'll go from there. So
cool.
if you're interested, come back
Come back next time. I don't know when the next episode is, but
like a week or two.
oh, there you go.
And we'll throw out there perhaps some of our favorite books and why they're favorite books and why we'd recommend reading them as well.
Hmm.
And then we'll take it from there and explore the past, the present, the future of Father Lanteri, the Oblates of the Virgin Mary, us
Boom.
as well, and go from
Great.
there.
Cool.
So thanks for listening. Hope to see you back. God bless.
See ya.